Hey everyone, Brian Von VA here, back at it again with another set of D&D stories. Today we've got, what are your happiest, wholesome, feel-good stories of D&D? In my first ever campaign, I played an ogre named Oblek. Oblek was an elite samurai, serving his master lord Nobunaga. He was the muscle of the elite squad, obviously. So one day, when our elite squad returned back to the city, it was under attack. After the battle, Oblek ran home as fast as he could to make sure his father was safe. He found his dad hiding in the back room of the tea shop they own. His father, after nearly chopping off his own son's hand, has a talk with Oblek about the tea shop and how proud he is to have Oblek as his son. This moment wasn't a major moment, but it was a good one, because it felt good inside, and it left me in a good mood for the rest of the night. When I was playing my life domain cleric Torxina, we had a wizard in the party named All State. Yes, you read that correctly. All was a bit of a cantankerous old coot. Well, not really old, but he was past midlife as a half-elf. He didn't dislike the party as much as he basically disliked, well, everything. But over time, he softened. One session we were in a town, and there was a magic shop there, so All wanted to go. The shop was run by 3 sisters, the youngest of whom took a liking to All for reasons no one in the party could understand. Keep in mind, this was an older half-elf wizard with a charisma of 6, who basically didn't talk to anybody outside the party unless he absolutely had to, and he disliked every second of it. But somehow, some way, this encounter led to an actual date for All, under the threat from the oldest sister that she'd burn him to ash if he broke the girl's heart. To which All replied, "It wouldn't be the first time." He'd once been disintegrated and had to be true resurrected. Upon coming back to the inn the party was staying at after his shopping trip, All mentioned the date he had somehow lucked into, and Torxina, who was basically the party mom anyway, immediately went into mom mode. "All, you can't go on a date looking like that. You're positively filthy. And you must take this young lady a bouquet of flowers, but not roses. That would be too forward. Lilies or perhaps daisies. Do you know her favorite color? Come to think of it, do you even know her name? What does she do? What does she like? Should I bake some cookies for you to take along? No, that's too childish. How silly of me. Come along, we have to go shopping. And you absolutely must get a haircut, possibly a shave, or at least a touch-up of that beard of yours. Well, what are you waiting for?" Without waiting for him to respond, Torxina grabbed his hand and pulled him out of the door of the inn and led him towards the market, where she paid for him to get his hair cut and have his beard properly trimmed, paid for him to have a nice bath at a beauty spa, and bought him a new cloak that magically stayed clean at all times, as well as a bouquet of daisies and lilies to give to his date. The DM gave him a permanent +2 boost to his charisma score for Torxina's efforts, and his date with the young lady went very well. They ended up getting married later in the campaign and had a kid together. The happiest was when my half-drow character got a new body. She had died halfway through the campaign, but managed to have her soul attached to a construct body. The rest of the game, she felt very self-conscious about her lack of having a body. Get to the end, and she was granted a resurrection by a goddess. I had to roll to see 1, what race she came back as, and 2, what sub-race. First roll I got elf, second roll I got drow. Half of her character motivation was finding a connection to her elven, specifically drow, heritage, since she had been raised by humans. It was so amazing that the dice gods granted me this outcome at the end of a story filled with a lot of tragedy and heartache. Most wholesome was when my halfling cleric adopted the Dragonborn barbarian and brought him back home to her little community, and all the grandkids used him as a jungle gym. He was a big old softy and had been kicked out by his clan for refusing an arranged marriage. My cleric was the grandma-est of grandmas and would not let him go on without a loving family. My fighter wound up becoming the biggest softy after he saved this young child from a town infested with zombies. His backstory had him suffer through a similar event. They quickly bonded, but he had to leave her with the other survivors to go rescue our captured sorcerer, promising he'd come back. After the rescue mission went south and further shenanigans happened, we eventually made a stop in another out-of-the-way town and had to investigate an orphanage. While we're there, guess who tackle hugs the fighter screaming,
uncle!
in pure happiness. So that's the story of how my fighter became a dad, a surprisingly good one at that for a morally dubious mercenary with a penchant for decapitation. Happiest was definitely at the previous campaign's epilogue, when my ranger bard was able to get her happy ending after so much trial and error. Making peace with most of her family, being a member of the newly created council that now leads the country, plus we even became allies with the Shadowfell plane due to being friends with the princess who rules there. Got married to one of the NPCs after having had 2 previously failed romances, got a daughter named after her late estranged aunt. And on top of it all, she was able to forgive herself for having felt like a fuck-up throughout most of the campaign. It felt so fucking good to have my character finally be at peace with herself after having at long last proved to everyone that she wasn't a noblewoman fuck-up anymore. Most wholesome moment was when my ranger bard and the party cleric, they were best friends, went to a cafe together during our break. We drank some tea while my character drew a really good portrait of the cleric, which she loved. Even the cafe owners were impressed by the artwork. It was a really cute moment. We had an encounter earlier this week with the druid of the party, who was being brainwashed by a nymph, whom later we learned was controlled by the god of death. We were prepping for what to bring to the table if we needed to fight or encounter them. The druid was told by the nymph that the party was under mind control by some dragons. We go to negotiate with them, but the barbarian gets hit by an off-screen dominate person and is forced to stab the druid. This convinces the druid that the party is indeed mind controlled and combat began. I was first in the initiative. I had been thinking of what I wanted to say for weeks, and I finally brought myself to spit it out. Something that was told to the druid many sessions ago by the goddess of wisdom, a character close both to myself and the druid. There's more than one side to a story. You must learn all the facts before making a decision. Instead of coming with us to the dragons to hear their side of the story, you left us, putting your faith in tricksters who we were warned about before ever setting foot in here. If anyone is charmed, or not themselves, it is you. Or have you truly abandoned my mother's advice? There was a collective "oh shit" from the entire party. Up to this point, every time there was an opportunity for the druid to fight this charm he's under, he rolled a charisma save with disadvantage. This time the DM said, roll a wisdom save, advantage. 18 plus DM inspiration, which at our table works like bardic inspiration, 26. The DC was 19. As the words echoed around the druid's mind, he looked back upon the false memories within his mind. He looked back on all the memories of this nymph he'd supposedly spent so long with, trusted with his life, and then looked upon a single scene which made him go, "Wait, that wasn't with her? She wasn't the one who said that." The illusion immediately shattered. The nymph had placed herself within his memories with those he loved, but her only flaw in her plan was that she didn't understand the connection of that love to those memories. He was brought back to full awareness. It was probably the only time I ever saw a charm effect wear off through RP rather than damage. The DM immediately gave me similar DM inspiration of a D12 and a bless for the rest of the combat, along with an extra 1,000 experience points at the end of the session. We use XP and get roleplay XP sometimes. I rarely, if ever, get more than 100. I was already well behind the others in levels, being at level 8 while everyone else was already level 9. The whole party agrees that it was the single best moment I've had with this character within the 2 years we've been playing in this campaign. The single wisest moment for my character, daughter of the goddess of wisdom, was when she called upon her mother's name to free her friend, who also cared deeply for said goddess, from mind control. Probably one of the most wholesome moments I can remember of the campaign in recent memory. First off, I personally just wanted to say thank you to all of you over there at MrRipper. Randomly stumbling across your videos got me interested in even trying out D&D. This is what happened next. So for our first campaign, and the first time I ever played, I am the DM for my 3 kids. all under the age of 10. I was trying to come up with a story that would be tailored to what they'd want and was browsing the internet for ideas for playing D&D with kids. Mostly coming up with search results of stuff like Save the Unicorn and Happy Elf Adventure in the Forest. You know, toned down themes that are kid-friendly. With all that in mind, I asked my kids what sort of campaign they'd want to play through. They all yelled to me at the same time, "Zombie Apocalypse!" Well, that makes sense. They are my kids after all. And cue first warm and fuzzy dad moment for me. So flash forward to our first game night. My son is a Dragonborn barbarian terrified of bats, my eldest daughter is a mischievous halfling druid infected with lycanthropy, and my youngest daughter a shy tiefling druid, awakened in a boarded up and locked building. They hear the wails and moans of the undead as they stumble around the courtyard outside. What follows is an escape from the locked home, exploring the barricaded alleyways and homes as a horde of undead tries to break into their location. All of this is visually played out on the map. I stayed up until 4 a.m. the night before because I was too excited to help myself. At one point, my son is done playing for the moment. Not that he's not having fun, just needed a break. His character is promptly dragged out of game by 2 skeletons he was dealing with alone in a home, leaving the frightened druid girls that just lost their tank to fend for themselves, giving me a great moment to tutor them on some of their magical abilities. At one point, they open the back door to one of the homes and see 2 zombies surrounding a frightened cat in the corner. They leap into action to save the cat, using thorn whips to drag them out of the home and into the alleyways where they proceed to beat them to death with wooden clubs while screaming, "Shillelagh!" at the top of their lungs. They search the building after, but the cat is gone, having escaped during all the confusion. They are very sad they missed the cat and lost out on the chance to use their ability to speak with animals, but they move on to clearing more houses of undead. My son is done with a break and joins back in. We write him back into the story after the first night, having escaped the undead hordes with the help of a shady priest. The 2 girls find strays in the city. They light up instantly, screaming out in excitement, adopting them on the spot. Gotta give my druid some pets. Flash forward to this town's main boss fight. A minotaur skeleton throws the priest that helped them into a large well before challenging their characters to a fight. His skeleton minions stand around in a semicircle, watching as their master prepares himself to battle the 3 young adventurers. The Dragonborn barbarian runs up to the minotaur and tries to bribe him. "Here's 1 gold piece, minotaur. Please stop your undead hordes." He rolls a 1 on his ability check. The minotaur laughs, his skeleton minions laugh, the tiefling and halfling laugh. The minotaur tosses the gold piece into the well and kicks the Dragonborn halfway across the map. An intense battle ensues, and they end up winning by dragging the minotaur over the edge of the well with thorn whip. As he dangles over the edge, the Dragonborn picks up a bone from one of the many skeletons and throws it from across the map. High roll, and the bone slams into the minotaur's face as it releases and falls to its death. The remaining skeletons crumble into piles of bones where they stand. The Dragonborn claims the minotaur's great axe as his own, and everyone levels up. We had a blast. This was our first experience playing a tabletop RPG, and we are hooked. The whole experience was just one big warm and fuzzy moment for me. Yeah, rules were bent and some numbers were fudged, it being our first time ever playing and all. The whole session was fluid and spontaneous. 95% of it was made up as we went along, and it was epic. And it's all thanks to you guys. Thank you, MrRipper, for upgrading our family game night. And thank you for telling us this lovely story because it warms my heart and makes me want to cry. Hey everyone, Brian Von VA here, back at it again, checking in after the vid. Make sure to leave a like, to subscribe, and to ring that bell so you can get notified whenever we post or go live. Also, make sure to check out our secondary channel as well, Riptovia, where we post stories much like this, except not threads, more so single stories. Speaking of stories, if you want to post one of your own to us, go to r/MrRipper and leave us some love. Links are in the description below. And of course, if you want to come say hi to me, do so on my Twitch or YouTube, Brian Von VA. All the love, everybody. We'll see you next time. Bye for now.